Good evening to you all. My name is Emmanuel Odeke. Welcome to this episode of Let's Talk. And I'm happy that you are all here. It's a great Tuesday, and the poured from the left to the right to the center. If it didn't rain where you are, then maybe you're not so prayerful enough. But I'm sure it rained all through, and it is a blessing. It's a blessing. While others are saying it's a blessing, there are those who are saying it is not a blessing. People say water is life, unless if you don't stay in wise. But those are things that happen here and there. Well, today we are discussing land as a resource for Church of Uganda. So that is basically what we want to discuss today, land as a resource for Church of Uganda. So if we are discussing land as a resource for Church of Uganda, then just know that we are safe if we right. So if we are saying land as a resource, so we want to see, why are we poor? If anyway we are poor, if we have one of the biggest resources in Uganda. And with me in the studio is a usual culprit in this show, Engineer Kibuuka Ronald. Would you like to say hello to our viewers?
Well, thank you, Emmanuel, and good evening, viewers. What a blessing. And as the rain has poured, we are washed and clearly blessed to be together this evening. We do bless the Lord for his goodness, and may always his will be done in our lives. Thank you.
When engineer says his will should be done, supposing the will is to be poor, so
It can't be his will.
But I'll reserve that for another time. To my left is Rev Jasper Tumuhimbise. Today is not on caller. I want to hope that we are safe.
I can't say the call was when I was working, but I'm Rev Jasper Tumuhimbise Mpirirwe, the Chief Executive Officer of Church Commissioners Holdings Company Limited. Good evening, listeners and viewers. You know, some people are just listening because their eyes can't easily see. And I hope you'll have a great discussion, especially on this resource, which God faithfully handed over to our forefathers. And some of us are busy abusing it, but I thank God that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And we are the third largest landlord in Uganda, Church of Uganda, 89 point something square miles. That's the resource God gave us. So we are discussing something that is enormous and affects each household throughout the nation.
Now this is serious. The figures have already started coming. 89.3 square what?
Miles.
Square miles. Now that is what Church of Uganda has about there.
Yes.
Now this is not a small chunk of land.
No.
Now to start with you, Reverend Jasper, on a rare point, why are we poor?
Yeah.
If we are poor, yet we have all this land.
There are three reasons why people are poor. One is by choice. You can choose not to get up and go to work, so you become poor. Secondly is ignorance, that I have a resource, but I'm not using it optimally in accordance to what God ordained. If you read Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, God said, go, multiply, harness. Meaning God is not going to come and work in your land for you to be what? To be rich. Then finally is because of abuse. That you have a property, you have land, you have a car, then you abuse it instead of using it. So the word abuse comes from use. IB, you just add AB on use. So you abuse what God has given and you become poor. And by the way, permanently poor. Unfortunately, regarding land, you do not only become poor, but even the generation that follow you become poor. So if you abuse the land as a resource, especially as a church, even as a parent and a family, your children will inherit that. Because inheritance comes from the fact that My father had this, so I'm getting something from my father. If my father never said, or mother never said, go to school, I wouldn't have gone to school. So I would inherit a certain level of poverty simply because my parents were not visionary. So that's the third level.
So in your look as the CEO of church commissioners, if you did assess, for example now, Church of Uganda with the 89.3 square miles
Yes.
of land that we have in the entire province of Uganda,
Yes.
why do we still have clergy who are not as rich as they should? Yet there are people who don't have this land, they have a small piece and they are utilizing it. So in your assessment, is this land into proper use?
No, of course, absolutely no. If it was in proper use, then we wouldn't have challenges of famine, we wouldn't have challenges of people failing, to sell and send their children to school. And you brought an issue of clergy being poor, partly because of the culture of that, and actually we spoke about it last week, and today I heard somebody mentioning it. Sometimes we inherit, like Church Missionary Society came and said, please preach the gospel for heaven. And many people focused on heaven and forgot that actually the gospel is holistic. And we have so many clergy, including some of us, I'm also clergy, who still think that we are heavenly focused. Jesus is clear that we are on earth. And so if you are on earth, you must eat, drink, survive, buy clothes, school fees will come. And so you must look for means of harnessing what God has given you in order for you to propagate the kingdom of God, but also your economics. So the biggest challenge in my view is not even ignorance, but mindset. That people think that food will come into their mouth. Even today there is what they call a grace gospel, where they say if you declare a PhD holder, you become a PhD holder. I mean, that's not only a hallucination, but it's absurdity. And that's the gospel. I mean, people propagating it. But God gave us hands to do what? To do work. And he says, listen if you are listening, that I will bless the hands of your what? The works of your hands, not your mind. It is not about what you think, it is about what you do. So we need a mindset change on how to use this land, how to produce for even the future, and even how to protect it. Because partly the biggest problem is also that because we are not utilizing land properly, then encroachers are coming in. We have squatters, we have land grabbers, we have all sorts of challenges we are passing through, partly because if you leave land and utilize it, somebody will use it. If you left money on top of a table, somebody will come and help the money, because the money is not supposed to be on a table. It is like as clear as that. I'm helping the money even if I'm not a thief. So if you have land, chunks of land around your church, utilize it. And we can, of course, we are going to debate later on how we are now approaching the whole thing, so that if you are in the northern region, you can have cashew nuts as a region and you do what? You do it. Then if you are in the western Uganda, house of avocado, and we are doing it now. I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we must utilize our land. We shouldn't expect God to come and be the one to do what? To dig for us. No, he won't come. Yeah, he gave us hands to dig and mind to think, and therefore that's it. And we must use it for his glory.
Engineer, Reverend Jasper spells out 3 reasons for poverty.
Yes.
1 is ignorance, 2 is choice, 3 is abuse. I want to think that by the time you become a reverend, you are not ignorant.
Yes.
Because you can't stand in front of people when you are ignorant. 2, choice, that one I can leave it because you can decide to choose otherwise. And then abuse is one other. Are there people who are choosing to go this way?
Thank you, Emmanuel. In fact, when you look at poverty by choice and ignorance, these two might not be so different from the other. The fact is that, as Reverend has just mentioned, the Bible spells out clearly the blessings and where God positions them. And when we get back and look at our grandfather Abraham, in the early church, people used to work. They had fields and farms. They had the sheep that they used to take care of. They were really working. Today, we do have a challenge that when it comes to work, work is well mentioned in preaching the gospel, but not walking the talk. There are instances where walking the talk is a challenge. Like Reverend mentioned, we've got quite a number of churches in the outskirts, in the dioceses, different dioceses, where they do have land. And practically I've seen these examples. A person is sent to a parish where there are 50, 30, 40 acres of land. And you know, day toward the other day, the head of laity reaches out to Christians and say, now Christians, please, we want to organize ourselves. We set a day apart to go and do dig into the field of the priest. We dig for him because, you know, he has to get food and everything. And then what happens is that they do a little portion where they can plant a few things for food. And the remaining bit of land is redundant. Creation of projects that can help the parish itself and the priest himself becomes a challenge. I remember one time sitting down in a meeting with some of the priests of several parishes, and they were saying, okay, we need a vehicle, I told them this is a very easy thing to do. One, utilize what you have. Two, the Bible tells us to be each brother's keeper. Pull your brothers. Provide a shoulder to lean on and organize yourselves. If it means putting portion of money in a certain parish, you achieve this, then you turn to the other in a circle form. It can help you. But the most important bit, utilize this land you have well, have plans of building in there. You can do a project. For example, you have 30 acres. Can the priest do 10 acres of personal investment and then bring the 20 acres as a project for the parish, so that all that land is utilized and there's a project done onto that piece of land? That will help you to achieve in that land, and as well to keep the land, to protect the land. I think one of the priests answered. He said, yeah, would have loved, but we have a challenge. I said, okay, what could be the challenge? And he said, you know, when we are posted, we want to do these things. You start doing them, and as you are doing them, you are again shifted and be posted somewhere else. I said, well, but could that be a reason? When they shift you from position A or parish A to parish B, do they bring a imam there to replace you? That no, another reverend with whom you are well trained. Now, if this reverend from where he has been, he did well, and also where you've been, you are doing well, meaning the gospel run in practice. Where you live a matoke plantation, you find a matoke plantation. Where you live a coffee plantation, you find a coffee plantation. And as you harvest this coffee, the money that comes gets back to you. And indeed, there, no land grabber will come and say, this land is free. It cannot be grabbed anyhow, because you're utilizing the land. Secondly, look at the areas where you stay. You are having schools within your vicinity. And some of those schools are struggling even to be fed. Why? The food is not there, but the land is there. You are sitting on it. You mean if you do 20 or so acres of maize, you cannot produce? I remember connecting with one of the leaders or one of the dioceses, and I asked, okay, fine, we're having institutions within your diocesan setting. For example, go to Luwero, where there's Ndeji University, Ndeji Jesus and the rest. Go to Mukono, where there's UCU and others. Then go and ask, what business do the diocese, on all the land it has, what business is it doing with some of these institutions? The schools, the institutions of learning, because now look at a university like Ndeji, look at a university like UCU. The food itself that the population needs to eat, where is it coming from? When you go to some of our secondary schools, they are fed by Muslims, they are fed by Catholics, they are fed by pagans. Those are the people who get tenders of supplying the food. And those people, they just buy food from different scattered areas. The other day I was doing research, and the maize which was being sold around of flour, they go and get maize as far as Masindi, Arua. There's another space there before you reach Masindi, Chigumba. They get maize from there into these central areas. But all Luwero, all Mukono, there is land. And surprisingly, what is most painful is that the land grabbers have become so wild to the extent that they want to kill priests. They raise hands on priests, beating them over redundant land. We, by all means, we are godly people. You can't find a priest on feasting and fighting somebody. Even though we say we are going to return by prayer or fight by prayer, yes, fine. But look, we need to be tactful enough to make sure that we don't give an enemy an entry point. Because the moment we deny an entry point to the enemy, we'll be safer. And therefore, when you come to misuse or abuse, we really rotate so much in there. I believe we should find a mechanism, whether you are a priest, to be the first eye opener onto land utilization. Heads of laity, let you be active enough to utilize whatever piece of land we have. I'm talking about land which is in outskirts, we can find its proper use. Land within the urban settings, still it's very prime land. We can find a way of organizing this land so that it can help us to benefit at a wider scope. For example, if we have a plot of land somewhere within, where's your parish?
I'm around in Zambia.
Zambia. Maybe, let's say Zambia, around Zambia. And we have maybe 10 acres. And Zambia is an upcoming area. Whatever you put there, let's be maybe apartment, accommodation or anything, it can work. We can, as a church, we can do partnerships and say, fine, we have these 10 acres and our plan is here. We want to develop them into housing units, which we can even mortgage. Because even ourselves, we can mortgage to our Christians. They are there, who are struggling to find the space and where to stay. We do first-class apartments with a partnership with maybe from financial institution. We do mortgage our units, and we'll have the money out of them. If we don't, what will happen? The land grabber will forge right and center until that land is taken away. And what will happen? The moment it's taken away, we'll run very fast to the book of Lamentation. And this is a very big challenge. So unless when we wake up and look at things quite right and hands-on, we have a challenge. Right here at the center, even in the outskirts. So when I was so taken up by when the Reverend said, we have started, this is starting off segmenting our land in areas where they are. Because, I always tell people, the richest church we have is the Anglican Church. All the resources are available. Land we have, personality, human resource we have, technocrats of all types we have the structures, because our structures are very clear. The dioceses are they are the structures we're talking about. So if we segment, whether by diocese, whether by region, and overall that in this region, if you want to be the best maize producers, this is the way to go. And we segment that area. If we want beans, we segment the area. If we are looking at matoke, we segment the area. We will know well that in all the dioceses, the segments we've done, there is what is coming out of there. There are some areas where doing the cash crops like coffee is the way to go and can produce huge amounts of money. We can look at such kind of areas so that we can safeguard our land and utilize it so that we don't fall into this category of poverty by choice or ignorance or misuse, but we want to now turn around things and utilize our land.
Just at that,
Yes.
Reverend Jasper, looking at what you just mentioned, the abuse and things like that.
Yes.
Now, we are adding on land grabbers.
Yes.
Who are custodians of this land where you are not?
Okay. Yeah.
You are in Namirembe here, people are stealing land in Moroto.
Yeah. So church land has 4 dimensions. The first one is ownership. Ownership is by the registered trustees of the Church of Uganda. And the trustees are clear. They are our bishops. 37 in number as of now. Secondly is control. So ownership is clear at the province, the trustees. Second is control. Control is by dioceses. That each diocese is like an accounting entity where land is entrusted to them. Control it. Build here. Do this. If they want, to make a building like in town, Mukono Diocese did it, pension house, do that. Control the land, but you don't own. Then the third category is what they call management. Management is at the lowest unit, and that's what Engineer Kibuuka is talking about. Where you have a parish, it has about 70 acres, and as a parish, we have empowered councils. Do what you want with that land, but don't leave it empty. Grow, assist the priest to make sure that you are growing. In fact, yesterday, as a model, South Ankole Diocese was the New Vision editorial.
Yes.
As a model for the nation. Why? Because the diocese, through the parishes, is to be like a small bylaw. For us, they are not bylaws, but a small bylaw that each parish should have this matoke, this number of coffee plantations, 5 acres actually minimum. Then as an individual, then as a parish, 20 acres. And in totality, I can assure you, they have already changed economically. I read, and I quote, that their offertory comes from people simply because people are rich. So that's the third level. The fourth level, so we have ownership, registered trustees, then control is diocese, management is by the parish, then we have what they call access. Access is the one using the land. Apparently in our policy, it is okay for the priest to use the land. It is okay for Christians to use the land as long as they are not saying that we own it. So in other words, the parish council can agree, let this mothers union get these 10 acres, grow cashew nuts, then produce. Then if you want, you can give part of the church. Then you produce so that you become better rather than lamenting. So those are the 4 dimensions. But we need to know that throughout the world, land is a permanent resource. In other words, it is not going to increase.
Yeah.
But population is increasing. So pressure to grab from those who have is actually increasing. Whether it is government, whether it is Uganda Land Board, whether it is church. But church, as the engineer said, it becomes a simple target. Because for us, they say we shall pray.
Yeah.
But I can assure you, and let me warn land grabbers, time for taking church land was and is over. You will take it, we shall take on you, using the force of the law and the justice system that is there. But we shall not keep quiet. And there was, that tension that, you take church land, you forge a title. No, those special titles will be cancelled. We shall use the law. Others are using even sometimes officers, bad officers in the military. Yeah, we can also use them. But we have even a bigger commander, my friend, and we call upon him. He will come and handle all the rest. But I'm just telling you, yes, land is a resource and it gains value. Another thing is that land gains value daily. Whether it is utilized or not, it gains value. And in fact, one of the factors of production that gains value is land. That what you purchase, the time value of money for land today is not the one of tomorrow. That tomorrow somebody will give a higher value. But it's a natural resource which we must all protect. So those are the 4 dimensions. And I wish all of us were now saying ownership is clear. When we are registering titles, let's put the registered trustees of the Church of Uganda, because that's the legal entity. Then when we are controlling, use the diocese mechanism to ensure that this land is titled. If we are going to give leases or rental, when we are getting rental income, let's ensure that we are doing it properly, so that in the future, nobody will say that this land got lost under Reverend so and so. I mean, for me, God forbid, I never want to be counted among those who lost land or lost any coin on behalf of God. No.
So the ownership is clear, the control is clear, management is clear, and access is also clear. Just in a bit. Now, this land we are discussing and talking about, if the lease expires, and the parishes who are managing it inform the diocese, and the diocese keeps quiet on it. Supposing the ones who, for example, if it was given by the government, isn't there a gap that somebody can come and swindle and take over that land because the lease expired and it has not been renewed or it is happening. It happened in Tinda. We lost a plot because somebody never renewed. But still, and that's why this system must be clear. If I want to lease land, I must apply to the parish. The parish council will sit and minute. Under minute, so and so engineer Kibuuka is to lease this amount of land for this period. They send to the archdeaconry, which is an administrative unit. It is not an accounting unit, but it's administrative. And then they send to the diocese. The estates board at the diocese will sit and minute and send it to the province for processes of 3 bishops to allow that lease. And we have a standing committee for that. So that's the ideal. But sometimes that's not followed. So currently we are doing 3 things. Number 1, we are putting it on a registry. That you must map all the land in Uganda. This is where it is, this is where it is, this is where it is. And this is the current status. Number 2, status, squatters, this is not you being utilized, this is under lease, this is still our freehold, this is like this house, church house, it's freehold because it is in the central business district where they give leases under KCCA. Then we map out that. After mapping, we now begin engaging. Where land was grabbed, we come and tell you, this is our land, either obtain a lease or pay usuru if you're a squatter, or totally get out. And if it is government, please compensate us. Then the last one is, so that after mapping, that's physical, you also put it electronically. So that in the future, just on my phone, which I have here, I can see what is in Kigezi diocese. And that one should happen this year. So that you sit and say, okay, in Kigezi, in this parish, we have this amount of land, this is titled, this is not titled, this is encumbered, this is not, so that you now begin intervening based on the situation on the ground. So that's the way forward now. That's why I said there is a light
at the end of the tunnel.
At the end of the tunnel.
The beauty with Church of Uganda is that there can be light at the end of the tunnel when Reverend Jasper is still in the office. Tomorrow, if another bishop comes and says you are transferred to Karamoja as bishop, then
what? One put the light there.
One fact is this. If a process is well organized and it's rolled out, changing of things should be based on the fact that it's a permanent arrangement and system that everybody should follow in. Because previously we've seen what the weaknesses have costed us. The other bit about
but engineer, you and I can bear witness that once the vision bearer of something is no more, it takes centuries for it to come back.
True, but
The
we can't
vision
change
bearer
this.
of this building we are seated in
Yes,
went to be with the Lord how many years ago?
but we realized it still.
But now the building is
The building
Exactly, and
and
it
even
took,
the signage is
and it took some other person after decades of time
Yes, so
to
we,
wake up.
We now need to build the systems, sorry
Yes.
for to build the systems so that the one to switch off the light can't switch it off. In other words, I have a computer system, I have a land registry, to the extent that even if a thief comes, they will be seen.
On top of that, Reverend and viewers, the moment these items or these areas are well followed, and well knowing that our responsibilities
Yes.
are well spelled out and clear. When you look at the ownership, the control system, the management, and the access. Because we don't want people to think that's a provincial arrangement,
No, it isn't.
whereby we who are here, we are not connected to it. And I wanted also to come in on the side of leasing out the land. Previously, you would find somebody leasing a land for 99 years or 49 years. To be precise, that land is sold on or is passed on. And those are the people you found that they have been cutting this land into smaller units and sell it over. Now, I do propose that the best way could be the leases should be properly managed and monitored. How? If a land is to be leased, let at most the land be leased for 20 years, which can be renewed. And these 20 years can be monitored. I'll give you an example. If you lease a land for 49 years, for example, the person leasing is 50 years. By the time the 49 are off, that person is long gone. And the children is living behind. All they know very well is that this is our land and they can start sharing and even selling parts of it. But if, for example, somebody takes land for 20 years and in the first year of the lease gets a baby, the baby counts day one as the year the lease starts. By the time maybe this person clocks 20 to become mature, or clocks 18 to be a mature person, will be now able to go through documents and see everything, and will be put down and say, this is where we stand, and this is the concern of our land, this is our status, this land belongs to the church. That person will not be able to claim the land and say, I'm selling it over, because we'll know, hey, so if it expires, then we have to renew. The process will run. But the other people who have taken long period, they take ownership, and they start segmenting land because they feel they own it. Secondly, the monitoring process by the land owners, we, under the church, has been totally down. No people, in fact, the departments, like we said, the management bit, were not running around, and the control, these two, the management and control, were not running around monitoring the land until when the fire had been spilled out. And quite often, people say, now that one was taken over, now what can we do? And the land goes. Sometimes we find connivances by we, the laity, because we were in areas, we know this land, and if you find a weaker priest being in charge, people connive and they start now meddling things around and they sell the land. By the time, I may have been here for long, I know everything. The priest has just come, he has gotten no much information, but the laity who has been there is now the in charge of grabbing this land. Because most of this land which is taken, we the laity were involved. We are deeply involved. And we do make mention, I've been around for a long time. In fact, I wonder even I should mention this. There are areas you find somebody stating, I've been a head of laity for the last 40 years in one church. You say, what's the problem? In the last 40 years has been the head of laity. I've been the Muanikao treasurer for the last 50 years in this place. Some of these people claim, they end up claiming ownership. And when they find weak systems, they will take charge, and at the end of the day, we are going to lose. Reverend made mention of the fact that land is a fixed resource. Of course, it will never expand. It's just that land. I do believe that land cannot be carried and taken somewhere. Land can only be used at a certain time. And everybody wants land should be using land to develop. Just use land at the time somebody is in existence. And then it's passed on. Somebody else uses it. Today, because it picks value, we've gotten a challenge. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is a land dealer. Is selling land. You know the piece of land. You know, everybody is a land dealer. Now, this one also has added to more problems. And the government, at some extent, should regulate this land dealers. In fact, when I'm talking of this, I'm talking about government as a management and the land system, even the land that belongs to government. Who are those mandated to do this business? And if that one is well regulated, you will find that we can also come up with the systems that will now eliminate the more havoc that we are going into.
Engineer, how is government going to do this?
No,
in this economy that we are in today.
Yes. The government can do it because the government has got long eyes to see. And in fact, if you ask
we are discussing government of Uganda.
Yes.
Where iron sheets disappear. We are discussing government of Uganda.
Yes,
having an eye on.
Yes. The iron sheets can go. They are not only the first thing which has gone. Too many things have happened. The government of Uganda were discussing. It didn't came into existence yesterday. We've had the rebels from each and every corner. Rebels coming and then getting finished. Why? The government had a hand in that. Now, the effort that is used onto securing this land, I mean the country, must be the same effort used to deal with the land system, because it's a trigger also which can cause insecurity at some time. We've seen countries and situations where people turn into violating each other, killing each other because of land. So land should not be taken lightly. The other day, people went in Mukono and they beat up the lay readers. Yes, the lay readers in college. I mean, it's not easy, because if the lay leaders got any punks and the heads were falling off, what could that be? Now it becomes a government case to secure its people. So I'm telling you, the government must open its eyes more than what we see. We are not only looking at something small. This is a very big resource with the challenges, and as Reverend said, we all know it's a fixed asset. That's why I was saying, in one way to deal with this scenario, could there be either government land, private land, church land, Uganda land or institutional land? Should there be a proper planning for infrastructure and settlements? Because what's happening today, if Tom or Dick or Harry gets some 25 million or gets a job, he wants to go buy land and build a small thing somewhere as a home. But in other parts of the world, where you see populations are growing, people are putting units, housing units, and they go higher as skyscrapers. And all people are accommodated in these areas, urban areas where they are working. And they mortgage them out, and people are accommodated. So there should be a proper planning of housing units or infrastructure development.
Now, Reverend Jasper, at this state of Church of Uganda, the Baganda se nanyini mufu yakwata awawunya.
Yeah, that's the Uganda, you know.
I know our Uganda is a bit similar. What is Church of Uganda doing as far as securing this land, and as far as, I don't know, do we have any plan on increasing on what we have already?
Yes. So, like 4 or 5 things. Number one is strengthening systems of current land use, land management, land access. Then second is monitoring outward and inward leases. You know, outward means the church is giving leases and they tackled it. Then there is also inward, that the church leased and the lease is about to expire. So a mechanism to monitor, to know that within 5 years, this land in Ntinda, so the process should begin of renewing. Then number 3 is that these processes should be transparent. What engineer tackled is, you'll find a head of laity with the Reverend, God forbid, entering a deal of land transaction without the due process within the parish. And the good thing, church processes are clear. That the parish must give a minute under which to bought land or actually leased land. So we need that transparency. Then most importantly, this land is normally given by individuals. They grow old and die. Their grandchildren, no cousins, or great-grandchildren are becoming a problem to church.
Exactly.
Why? Because they say, you never documented. It was a goodwill. That Peter Odeke gave me a phone, goodwill, we are friends. But the son of Peter Odeke is saying, you must give me back my land. I simply gave you to use and return. The never case happens. So we need to document all processes on how we acquire land and then use it. Whom do we acquire it from? When do we acquire it? Are we paying Usuru, Uganda landlord? Are we paying all of these dues? That is also happening. Then he appealed to government. I also want to appeal to government and us. Now, us as individuals, that church land, government land, school land, health land, wherever it is being targeted by grabbers. Let me repeat. It is being targeted by grabbers because they feel there is no ownership. Ownership means, of course, you can't touch on my small land. I have something in Wakiso.
Yes.
You will risk and just extend by 1 meter.
Yes.
Of course, if you find me very saved, I can forgive
And then you go back.
because I want to remain on my way to heaven.
Yes.
But the real thing is that ownership is real. And therefore you will not extend simply because this is the boundary. But when it comes to church, school, health center, who is the owner? That's why I thank God for many reverends who stand and say no.
Yes.
For many heads of late, and by the way, there are many. Sometimes the Raja syndrome, you think you are alone. No, I can assure you there are so many people in Uganda standing for church land who say no, you won't touch it. But in terms of segmentation now, in the north it is communal land, communal, north and east. And communal 10-year system is very tricky when it comes to church, to schools. Because the community will say, no, we gave church, but now we want to give government.
Yes.
These are city schools we are fighting with. Then in terms of central, that's Busoga and Buganda. We have a small challenge of the grandchildren, the people claiming that, okay, daddy gave you,
Yes.
but
Jaja.
we want our land back. Because I have letters of administration, so take it. Now, in the West, apparently, especially Kigezi, Muhabura, and Ankole, it is not easy to touch church land. People will kill you. One, because land is small. Two, because somehow revival told people to say that the divine things don't touch.
Yes.
Then the Bunyoro and the part of Toro has a historical problem. Historical means there was a lot of their worldwide life resources. Then there was a lot of migration. So that also faces pressure. Because, I mean, people came, settled, and then you find it is church land.
Yes.
Because it was like in a bush. So you now have to handle, not with the come and push out, but what can we do for these people?
Common understanding.
Can we give them leases? Can we give them, titles so that they can pay something to the church? So that, because they are also our Christians.
Yes.
And by the way, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That you are chasing your Christian
From
from your Christian land. I mean, it is like a quandary. So it is a challenge.
Yes.
That it is me telling this old lady, get out. Yet, she looks at Christianity
as
as a
something that
divine
should
thing. You should comfort
welcome
me. You
everyone.
can't be the one. And so that's a real challenge for the churches. Okay.
We have a few minutes to jump out of here, and you can be sure we will not finish this. But engineer,
Yes.
how best do we see this land matter? Because now, Reverend Jasper said mindset is a big problem. How do we deal with mindsets of people who think, one, that they are only meant to work to go to heaven, one, they're meant to go to heaven, and
Emmanuel and viewers, a lot of challenges have been around us, but again, God is on our side. God has been opening our eyes quite often. And the very last time, or the very recent time we've seen, is when we went through the two serious lockdowns, the COVID-19 pandemic. We really saw that unless when we organize ourselves, but we were in a very poor state of affairs. Me, I got pained so much when Reverend or the church, for example, could appeal for help in terms of food with all this square coverage that we have. I don't mean that everybody could be out and digging at that very time. It was critical. Yeah. But at least we stand a chance of utilizing this land, the agricultural land, and we can as well be able to have food stores and syrages where we can store our foods that we produce in our areas. And I thank the Lord, because during the COVID-19, God gave me a chance, and this is what I came up with. I sat down and I did this project, which I termed provincial, in fact, I called it food production and security in the province of the Church of Uganda. And I thought it could be under the provincial agriculture sector, where we could take on agriculture as a business. This could help us to feed ourselves. It could help us to make money and be able to also give jobs to our young people. Because we have quite a number of them who have trained as agriculturists. And they are there seated. They are doing nothing. We have a lot of market for the produce. For example, in the institutions I've talked about, we can feed our own institutions with the food that we produce. In fact, we can even have food stores full and silage where we can cross food in terms of feeding the hungry. Of recent, we've been in appeals. We're appealing to people to help us feed the Karamachongs, the people in Karamoja. But if other areas where we are able to produce food, we had our food and food is in plenty in our stores. I mean, what happened when Joseph was in Egypt? You know, there are lessons which are practical that we have to walk. Because God has given us the resource, God has given us the ability. Now we need to look wider than where we see. We can utilize this land and produce food and really make sure that we feed ourselves, we feed the body, we feed the soul and the mind. There's no way a church can ask for food. No way. When we have all this land, we just have to utilize this. And I'm grateful when through NADS we are helped and we started getting tractors. And we got in tractors, the prophets of the Church of Uganda. I want to assure you that a time is going to come when whoever gave us the tractors will ask for accountability. And we will have to account for these tractors and what they have done. So to me, my appeal and my stand is we better utilize this land, segment it and utilize it, use the structures that we have to produce food, and we do business in terms of agriculture on these pieces of land, and our land will bring returns to us and will be protected.
Now with us having almost 1 minute to jump out of here, next time you'll see Reverend Jasper here, you'll be letting us know how best the land can be utilized to get its people out of poverty. And I'm sure he will give us very soon. Next week is a little bit committed, but we'll check up with him when he can return and look into that further. But our time here is done. Thank you so much for coming through. Each of us can use a minute to sign out so that... Let me start with the engineer.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And viewers, I'd like to appeal to each one of us that God gave us a resource. And it's our duty to best utilize the resource he gave us. We thank our forefathers who have been custodians of these of the land, this great resource, and those who donated to the church so that the gospel should be preached. We should hold on to that. The purpose of giving this land to the church was to preach the gospel and to reach us out to God's people. We should retain this, and now we should change the tactics and see how best we can utilize this land, retain it for the purpose, and then to benefit the upcoming generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer. Reverend Jasper.
Yes, thank you, Emmanuel. And mine clearly is two things. Number one, mindset change should begin with us, Christians and the church. Number two, may God not accuse you of becoming a foolish virgin. Righteousness, okay? Foolish virgin is because they misused the opportunity God had given them. Even the parable of talents, Matthew 25.
Yes.
Basically, 2-5 is okay, but the one who hid it. So I do not want anybody to be told that you are a foolish servant. Yes. You wicked, get away from me. You know why? Because you never used the land in your churchyard, you never protected it. I pray that we shall protect our land and have our children for posterity looking at us knowing that, yes, my father fought for our church. God bless you.
Thank you very much. With that, why don't you be a better steward of what God has put to your hands and make great use of it? Otherwise, you will be what Rev Jasper just mentioned. Not the other wise one, but the foolish one. God bless you for God and my country. From us and the team, it's a good night. Till we meet again next Tuesday.